Hello. Hello there, young programmer. Come to hear some stories you have. Well, sit right down. I'll tell you all about programming languages. All right. Um, so, first I want to talk a little bit about Quora. You might have heard of Quora. It's a website where people ask questions and other people post answers. And for a while there, it was a pretty phenomenal site. I mean, people would take the time to just write out these incredibly detailed answers, and a lot of times post images and different screenshots and different things, and just photos, whatever, diagrams to supplement the articles that they wrote, and they're just great. And like sometimes you get someone who is an expert in their field. Sometimes you get someone who's like famous in their field. Um, and Yeah, and it's just a great platform. Um, I mean, it's just and when I say it was, it's just like I don't know. I think most people agree that it's just not. People aren't as active as they used to be. People just aren't as interested in the platform as they used to be. Like as far as the people who write answers, um, and it's just not. I don't know. I think people just kind of grew out of it, and Quora just kind of the website itself just kind of does weird shit, and yeah. Anyway, by weird shit I just mean like they don't care about their users. They do a lot of stuff that their users hate, but they just do it anyway because they can. And I mean, the only reason they get away with it is because it really is the only place like it where you have this sort of very high quality Q&A. Um, not that anybody else it couldn't just go somewhere else, but it just happened to be on that platform, and so they'll do things like you can't. They have this annoying thing where you can't use the website on your phone without it like basically spamming you with the mobile app advertisement. There's no way to get around it. So if like you're reading something and this advertisement comes up, you're fucked. You have to like reload the page and it doesn't save where you were. So like a lot of times you can't even find the article you're reading. So that's what I mean by weird shit. Like by weird, it doesn't make any sense that you would you want to please your users, right? You want to kiss their ass. You want to do the things that they like and figure out um, how to make money off of them. You know what they're willing to pay for, like what they want. But all their money is made through advertisements, and so they're they don't really care about the users. So that's like they're at odds with their own. I mean, you don't want that, right? If you're running a business, your users are supposed to be your customers. You're not supposed to be at odds with your users. Your users aren't supposed to become this like non-customer thing that like it's almost like they're like chicken in a chicken coop, because the chicken don't pay you any money, right? They just make the eggs and then you sell the eggs uh, for money, right? You sell the eggs to the advertisers, right? The users generate this sort of viewership, and then you sell the viewership to the advertisers for money. I mean, that's just I don't know. You don't really. I mean, I think we've kind of learned from television and stuff that uh, that's not great for anybody. Anyway, sorry for rambling so much about Quora. So on Quora, you see I one thing that I just stopped going on it because like everything in my feed was just like people asking about like which programming language is the best programming language for functional programming. What programming language is the fastest? What programming language is the best? What programming language is the most powerful? What's better, static or dynamic typing? What's what's better, OOP or FP? What's the difference between OOP and FP? Why should I use OOP? Like it's just like there's like a certain type of question that a certain level of programmer asks. And once you get to a certain point, you stop asking these stupid fucking questions. Like I asked all these questions. I asked all these stupid questions. And so like I'm not innocent. I'm not saying better than anyone. No, I'm saying I'm this is just how it goes. This is just the cycle of life. Um, and you just get to a point where these questions are they're just so fucking stupid, and you just don't even want to give them the time. You don't want to read any fucking question about them. You don't want to read any answers about them. You don't want to look at any posts. You don't want to take the time to answer somebody's question. You're like, why? It's not even worth your fucking time. It's just so stupid. They're just such stupid questions. And what the questions boil down to is a lack of knowledge about programming languages, and more importantly, a curiosity about programming languages. Right? It's not like you just have because without the curiosity, it doesn't matter, right? Like maybe in school you learned Java, and you got an internship where they use Java, and then you got hired doing Java, and then every job you've ever had since is just Java, and that's just you just live a Java life, and you have no interest in other programming languages because they don't apply to what you're doing. So like that would then we have no problems, right? They're not going to be you're not going to be asking these questions. You're not going to be wasting your time consumed with these sorts of topics. Like basically the differences between programming languages. But if you have a curiosity, right? If you have a curiosity, you want to know why, what the difference is, why people say this and that. Then we have problems. Then we have this sort of phase that you have to go through that is a complete waste of your time, and that you want to get over as soon as possible. And basically, the way to get over this phase is to learn one programming language very seriously. Just get really in depth. Not just like I don't mean like you have to get really good. Like you feel like you're the best programmer in the world and you can just program anything in half a second and all your tests always pass. I just mean that all that I mean is that you learn the language in as much detail as possible, meaning you read the documentation, you've read almost every goddamn, if not every goddamn built-in function or keyword or symbol or whatever you want to call it, constant. You've at least seen it, you've read about it, you've gone over what its intentions are, what its purposes are. And like I said, it literally comes down to reading the documentation. So like if you're programming in Python, like all of Python's documentation is online, and like they give examples for everything. They go in depth about every little thing in Python. That's what I mean. And most languages are like that. Like C#, Microsoft has like an online directory, so to speak, of everything about C#. Anyway, that's what you have to do to overcome this phase, because what you're going to learn, not from, you can learn this from programming from programming a bunch of little different programming languages, you'll learn that pretty much all programming languages are more or less the same. But from getting really, really good at one language, you can then program in another language. And what you'll find is that everything that you could do in the previous language, you can pretty much do in this new language. And it really was just about looking up the magic words, the incantations that you had to call in that specific language to do exactly what you used to do in the other language. Now, obviously, there's going to be differences. There's going to be certain things that you have to do you might have to do things a completely different way than you did before. But you're more or less those things you would just Google. But the thing is, it's still going to be more or less the same thing. Functions are functions, variables are variables. It's there's nothing really game changing in terms of the differences between these programming languages. Even I mean, if we're just talking about top three: JavaScript, Java, Python, or whatever. I mean, these are pretty much the same. These are all so similar. It's not even funny. I mean, these are all algal derived languages, um, which you would probably think of as like C derived languages, even though algal came first. But they all look pretty much the same. Um, and there's really no huge differences between them when you compare them to things like Lisp or Forth. And like Lisp was basically invented at around the same time C was, like around 1959, 1960, that period of time. And I mean, Lisp is totally different in a sense, but at the same time, it's really not different at all. It's just programming. You're just creating variables, creating functions, doing math, manipulating strings. Like, and so when you realize this, when you've gone down this path, that's when you realize that all these fucking questions about static and dynamic typing and which language is more powerful and all this other stuff, it just becomes a waste of time, especially if you have an opinion about something. Like, it's even more so not like, oh, like none of it matters, like they're all equal. No, I'm not saying everything's this. All programming languages are exactly the same. They're all equal and they're all equally powerful. No, not at all. I'm just saying that it's a waste of your fucking time to get consumed about those differences and to communicate with people about those differences. um, because no one really gives a shit about your opinion. They care about their opinion. They don't really care about your experiences. They care about their own experiences. And so, even though I might think that Lisp is this beautiful language that's just amazing and God's gift to the universe, it's a complete. I mean, I'll share my enthusiasm about Lisp. I'll try to inspire people to pick it up. But it's a complete waste of time to like get into arguments about why Lisp is a superior language, because it's not something that can be argued anyway, because it relies too much on experience to understand the importance of things, and people have their own experience, and that teaches them that other things are important, and you can't really argue about that experience because it's not convincing. It's not convincing unless you actually experience it. Um, and so anyway, so yeah, just I mean, if you find yourself asking questions about, you know, uh, what's the best language for blah blah blah, like then I mean, then please just learn one language as good as you fucking can, and then you won't ask these fucking questions. I mean, or which library is the best for blah blah blah. I mean, they're just so stupid, man. Like, because yeah, it's just, you'll understand when you're building your own applications, when you're coming up with your own logic, and then you're using libraries just so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, rather than like, oh, I don't know how to do this, so I'm using a library for it. Like, that's when you realize how pointless it is, because it's not really about those things, right? It's not really about best or this or that. It's just like you're just trying to get something done, and like something might help you or something might be a liability. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, and the thing is with programming languages is the tools for them suck. Like the interfaces for, like, the idea that you're typing out text files to program a computer is the most fucking retarded thing I can possibly think of. It's just, you wouldn't, like, if we were playing a game of League of Legends, I wouldn't write out a text file to to determine how what my character does, what my champion does, and what items I'm gonna buy, and then like and then switch over to the League of Legends application and then run my file. Like it is just I'm sorry guys. Like if you think programming is an intelligent way, if you think typing text into files is an intelligent way to tell a computer what to do, you deserve to be typing text. You deserve to be typing out those fucking text files. You deserve it. You deserve um, the consequences of your own fucking stupidity. Um, there's a great lecture by Brett Victor, and he doesn't share the same tone as me. Obviously, I have a very cynical tone, very what's the word? Bitter. I have a bitterness to my views. But no, he just has he's just trying to show that what's possible and what we can all gain from having a principle for believing in something important to us when it comes to what we think makes good software. And what he goes into is his own. He demonstrates. Look, you can have a principle. Here's these people's principles. Here's my own principle. And his principle is basically uh, immediate feedback when you're programming. So you immediately see the results of what you're doing. So like things like as he it's just live programming, right? He's talking about as he changes the height of say a tree image in his code. When he changes that number in his code, he can immediately see the picture getting bigger. And he's talking about like having better interfaces so that like if he was going to adjust a number, he would have if he hovered over it, there'd be a scroll bar, and he could use a scroll bar rather than actually typing out the number by hand. And that way he could see the tree. He could basically scroll through the height of the tree. By scrolling through the number, you can scroll through the height of the tree and see the tree shrink and grow in real time. And it's a very inspiring talk, and it just goes to show you that. And that was like fuck, I don't know how many years ago that was. 5, 10 years ago. I don't know how old that talk was. It's probably 5 years ago. I don't know why I said 10. I guess because I'm getting old. But it had to be at least 5 years ago. And yeah, the tools still suck. People are still typing out text in the boxes. It's absurd. There's a guy named Y who he wrote a book on how to learn Ruby. Back when Ruby on Rails was like a big deal, when it was a fad. And he gave a talk on gamifying programming, where he's talking about he's talking about a card game and the similarities and how you could literally teach programming and program via a card game. Now a card game looks just like he's just talking about just talking about a different way of thinking about programming where it could become a game. And by card game, I mean more like a Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon type card game, not like poker or Go Fish. And yeah. So the thing is, and you could do that. I've thought about how you could gamify programming, and it could easily be done. I mean, I imagine it differently, obviously. Um, yeah, I think of it more of a Minecraft style game, not so much a card game or an action game. And the reason I bring these things up about Brett Victor and why and changing the interface of programming is because that's what all a programming language is it's just an API. It's just this layer between you and the machine that someone else or some other people have come up with, and they have determined the rules. They have determined the incantations that you must cast in order to tell the computer what to do. And a lot of people think that these things are intelligently designed, and I can assure you that they are most certainly not intelligently designed. And like I said, programming is new. programming's been around for like 100 years. Like the people who were around and pioneering ideas in programming are dying. Like they're just and this is in the recent years we've been losing people left and right. And these people are like some of the first people to do this stuff. So it's it's so new. We haven't Programming hasn't been around for 1,000 years. So the idea that as just as a group as a people have had enough experience to do this well, and that this is the best that it's ever gonna get. It's never like it's just. I mean, it's so. It's just you have to be so fucking stupid, to think that. You have to just not realize like your place in the timeline, like in the world. Like you must think that like I don't know, things just become perfect overnight. And you don't understand that things like math, like the math that we have, like it took a long time to get the math that we have. Right? Like a lot of centuries of people coming up with math. Um, and things like engineering. And, engineering is not a new science. Building bridges and stuff. This is not new. So like, I don't know. People I think are just too naive, and they just think they want to believe in a perfect system, even if it's like a programming system designed by like a couple dudes. like like PHP is like one of those things where like the people even admit that they didn't know what they were doing, but people have defended that language left and right, and there's so many other languages where it's like it's so clear that the language sucks. Like Python. Like Python is a joke of a language, right? Like you can't even make real lambdas. You have to make like if you want to make a function without actually assigning it to a variable, you can only do these sort of half-assed one-line lambdas, and they're coming up with some bullshit that will allow you to hack around so that you can do multiple line like real lambdas now. I don't forget what it is. It's like the dumbest thing. It's like the turtle walrus operator. Fucking those fucking Pythonistas, dude. Um, yeah, I mean that language is just. I mean, come on, man. And it's not that you shouldn't use it. It's not that nobody. I mean, fuck yeah, use Python, get stuff. Yeah, use it all of its strengths. Have it use it to do stuff for you. I'm not. Like I said, it's dumb to ask, is it okay to use Python? Is Python a good language? Is Python good for this kind of development? I mean, try it, dude. Like, that's the thing. Like, it's not, it's not about that stuff. Yes, Python is a joke of a language. Yes, you really are crippled when it comes to doing certain kinds of programming. But if you don't even know what those kinds of programming are, you shouldn't even be asking those questions. Like, just worry about getting to the level to where you would know the difference. Just get really good with the language, and then you can see the differences between the languages. If you're the reason that you're asking these questions is because you're not proficient enough at programming as a whole to see the differences. And that's why things like, like in JavaScript, there's a lot of Haskell people basically trying to do their Haskell shit in JavaScript. And I don't hate on it. I think it's great actually. But the people who are not from Haskell don't understand that's going on, and they just think that this is the JavaScript thing to do. Like I think it's genius. I mean, these Haskell people have these sheep totally fooled. I think it's great, and these sheep are learning functional programming. I think it's fantastic, but they don't even get it. These people they're just they don't understand the Haskellness to it. They don't understand the influence, and so they'll get into really weird dogma where they'll say that things like promises, right, and all the promises is it's a callback function that's being attached to an object, and so it's a method of an object. All right, it's just a callback function, but instead of instead of passing that callback function to another function, you pass it uh, you pass it to this thing called a promise, um, and this object will then handle it. Right? You use this method to pass it to an object. Anyway, so why? What the fuck is that about? Well, in reality, what that's about is this kind of pretty ingenious thing where you keep track of the state of your program, right? Right, as things change, you keep track of all that state within an object. That way, the state is self-contained within that object. And you can do things like store the flow store by method chaining. If you method chain, you can basically like have like a flow of the program stored. So you can do things like if an error happens, it can just bubble all the way to the top, and you don't have to say like normally you'd have to be like, well, if this goes wrong, or if this goes wrong, or if that goes wrong, or if this goes wrong, or if that goes wrong, right? You have all these different cases of what you're going to do if something goes wrong. That could definitely be the case if you're doing like some sort of like web requests, like you're doing a bunch of different web requests because you're trying to parse a website for something, trying to get some information from a website. You're going to have a bunch of cases of what if different things go wrong. Or heck, even if you're just reading emails and stuff, you might have to do a bunch of what ifs for the emails. But yeah, so if you have a bunch of these cases, instead of doing that, what this idea allows you to do is you could do something like, well, if anything goes wrong in any of these calls, right? You can literally like take a block of programming and say, if anything goes wrong, then do this. It's almost like a try-catch block, but instead of it being in your code syntax like that, where you're using instead it's all within an object. So instead of it being in a block, you just contain everything that happens within an object. And it allows you to do things like that. But the problem that arises is that these JavaScript kiddos, they don't even know, bro. They don't even know. So they just think it does things like solves callback hell. That it changes the way the program looks. It shifts the program to the left, and that's why it's good for your program. They don't understand like the purpose of promises, and they learn this weird syntax, which again, there is purpose to it, but if you don't understand the purpose to it, then it's just a weird syntax, and they don't understand what's going on. And then when you show them basic stuff that's simpler than a promise, when you just use like a normal callback, they get confused and they're just like, why are you doing this? You should be doing this, and they can't. It's like, bleh. Basically, the problem is you don't understand the differences between programming languages. You don't understand the influence of one programming language to another, and you just stick to your dogma, and you end up falling into these traps where maybe a problem could have been solved in a much easier way, but because you don't understand how things work and why things are done, you end up stuck, and you end up having to like look to other people to tell you how to solve the problem, which I mean nobody wants, right? You want to be able to just think up something and then just tell the computer how to do it. Okay, anyway, I think I've bitched enough. I think I've bitched plenty.